Good morning and welcome to Hope Church Online. My name is Casey, and we are so glad that you're spending some of your weekend with us today.
We absolutely are. Hi, my name's Ken. I'm your other online host for today. Oh, what a fantastic Sunday to join us, right?
Yes, we have so much great stuff planned. We are in week 4 of our series, The Beginner's Guide to Predicting the Future. And we're looking at all areas of our life, whether it's our marriages, raising children, finances, or our jobs. We're learning from the life of Nehemiah how we can partner with God to predict our future.
Man, Nehemiah, what a guy, right?
What a guy.
It's fantastic to listen to and hear about. Predicting your future, not easy, right?
Not
This series
easy.
has been a little eye-opening for me. Like, for instance, last week, one of the biggest takeaways I had was where to look, right? You want to start your future. It's a pretty daunting task when you think about the vast expanse of what a future could be, right?
Yeah.
So look to your front door. You know, Nehemiah looked to a gate and said a gate needed to be fixed. That's where we began. You got to start somewhere. And he got people working just to get that start, to get that first step, which is most important. How about you? What have you taken away from this series so far?
Ken, I really loved that last week, but a few weeks ago we talked about in those moments, praying as if it all depends on God, and at the same time planning as if it all depends on me. And what I loved so much about that is in many instances in my life, I can think to times that I've prayed for things and really just waited for God to act without putting time into building that plan. And then in other times where I've worked on a plan and really taken that control, like I have all the answers. So I loved the idea of really partnering with God and bringing those two things together. That's been super helpful.
I can't tell you that's the other biggest takeaway for me from this is the fact that we have this man who, Jason says numerous times, nothing supernatural happened to him. There wasn't a voice of God. There wasn't a flash of lightning. It was just a man who partnered with God, who had his eye focused on God. And that's how he was able to do what he was able to do, which is an amazing feat if you think about all that he's accomplished so far, and there's still more to come in the next couple of weeks, that's for sure. So we hope that, we have just 2 more weeks left of predicting our future. What do you think's coming up? What are you excited for?
Well, I think today might be my favorite part of the Nehemiah story. So you'll have to stay with us and see, but his commitment to his goal and his vision and staying on his goal, even when things got hard, that's pretty cool.
That's fantastic. What do we have in line for today? If you're new, what are you going to see?
So along with a great message about the life of Nehemiah, we have some great music planned by the Hope Band. This worship music really helps us get ready and prepare our hearts. And at the same time, some great video to also help us worship.
And if you are new today, we want to know, right? So type new in the chat because we got some great people in there who are going to be watching that chat for you. We got a gift for you. We'll send it out to you. So let us know you're new because we love new people here at Hope.
Absolutely. And if you have a prayer request, we have a team that is waiting and willing to be praying for you. So you can type the word prayer in the chat and a member of our team will reach out to you and get your prayer request and know that our prayer and care team will be praying for you.
Casey, this is your first time doing online hosting, right?
It is. Please be kind to me. Yes, it is.
I think it's time we learn a little more about Casey. So Casey, how long have you been here?
My husband Josh and I have been at Hope for just about 7 years. And about 2 years ago, I joined the team here at Hope.
Oh, we got a two-sided question. What drew you to Hope, first of all? And then what made you decide to work here full-time?
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So my husband and I loved the church. As soon as we walked in, we felt welcomed, just like we want you to. And, we came back and got involved because we are here for other people, not for us to feel comfortable, but to help people find God, to get connected in and really make a difference in our community.
I can't tell you how much we're grateful to have you here at Hope. We love seeing you every time we walk in church for Sunday morning. So I think we're about ready to head into the auditorium and start today's service. Can't wait to hear this band. They got some great stuff. What do you think, Casey? Should we head in there?
Yeah, let's do it. We are so glad you're here today. We can't wait to worship with you, and we hope you have a great week.
Take it away, Nathan.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Hope. Hey, let's get on our feet. We're going to get this kicked off by doing some singing together. Alone in my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope, no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began. Ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. My orphan heart was given a name. My mourning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was a ransom he faithfully bore. He canceled my debt and he called me his friend. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Our Savior displayed on a criminal's cross. Darkness rejoiced as though heaven had lost. But then Jesus arose with our freedom in hand. That's when death was arrested and my life began. Oh, the grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Our church sing we're free. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song before the beating. Yes, we're free, free, forever amen. When death was arrested, my life began. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song before the beating. Yes, we're free, free, forever amen. When death was arrested, my life began. When death was arrested, my life began. When death was arrested, my life began. Yeah. You guys can grab a seat.
Welcome to Hope Church. Thank you so much for braving the rain and coming out to worship the Lord with us. Extra special welcome to those of you who it's your first time. We have a gift for you. We would like to get to know you a bit more. If you're joining us online, just write new in the chat and we will have someone reach out to you to get you your gift. And if you're here in person, I'll be in the hub. There will be a team in the hub where we can give you a gift and just get to know you a little bit more. Well, I also want to give a little bit of an update. You know, we've been talking a lot about Pathways, which is a group for people who want to grow in community with one another, want to learn more about Hope Church, know more about God. And so we've been talking about that a lot. And Tuesday in person, between Tuesday in person and Wednesday virtual, we had approximately 150 people join us for our Pathways. So thank you. Thank you, Laura. Let's give it up. So good. So good. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your prayers, everyone who put time in to help volunteer to make it happen, and also for your generosity, because it's through your financial generosity that we are able to reach Lake Country. And so I just want to say thank you so much for giving to the mission of the church. And if you are interested in giving to the mission of our church, there are multiple ways you can give. You can text the number that's on the screen there. You can go to hopelakecountry.com, and there's an option to give there. And there's also different ways in the back if you have like a physical money, if people still carry money or checks, you can put it in the back offering. They're not plates. I'm so used to saying plates. Buckets, or yeah, you could do it back there as well. So that said, our worship team has a song that they want to introduce us to. I'm super excited for it. I'm sure you're going to love it. So just stay seated, be in a position to receive and enjoy. Thanks.
When the road runs dead, you can see a way I don't. And it makes no sense, but you say that's what faith is for. When I see a flood, you see a promise. When I see a grave, you see a door. And when I'm at my end, you see where the future starts. I don't know how you make a way, but I know you will. I don't know how you make a way, but I know you will. You've been good on every promise, from Eden to Zion, through every dead end and out of that grave. I don't know how you make a way, but I know you will. And when the world
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hope Church. Happy Sunday, everyone in the room. Would you join me in welcoming everyone who is watching online? We are so glad you guys are here. I'm so glad you guys are here. We've got a great service planned for you guys this morning. If you're new, my name is Jason. I'm the lead pastor here at Hope Church, and I just love seeing all of you participating with all of you as we open the scriptures and learn God's wisdom today. What a privilege to be here and to open up the Word with you guys. Hey, we're in a series. We're in part 4 of a 5-part series called The Beginner's Guide to Predicting Your Future. And if you're just joining us in this series, what we're doing is we're looking at the life of an ancient historical figure named Nehemiah who had a superpower. And his superpower was the ability to see the future, not literally like a prophet, but like he could just connect the dots and he could see where things were going. And he couldn't just connect the dots and see where things were going. He could see a better future. He could see in his mind's eye a preferred future and build the bridge to get there. And what we have in what we call the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures, what we have there is his memoirs, his personal diary, his own biographical sketch of his own life, his autobiography. And in it, he lays out his guide, his template, his blueprint on how you can not only predict the future, but how you can predict a better future in your life, a better future in your kids' lives, a better future in our world. So let me catch you up to speed with some of the big ideas just to remind you guys where we're at in the series and what we're covering today. In part 1 of the series, we asked the question, what could be and should be in the future? When you look at our world and you see that something just isn't the way it ought to be, whether it's your family or whether it's another part of our planet, what could be and should be? Nehemiah looked at his world and there was something that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. The city of Jerusalem, the city where the Lord God was to be worshiped, the city where the temple of the Lord was in ruins. It was in shame. It was in disgrace, and that broke his heart. It had been that way for 141 years, but it just wrecked him. And he decided, that's not an acceptable future. I'm going to do something about that. So as you look at your world, what could be and what should be when it comes to your faith, when it comes to your eternity, when it comes to your marriage, when it comes to your career, when it comes to your family, when it comes to your life? What could be and should be? And then in part 2, here's what we learned from Nehemiah. Pray as if it all depends on God. Plan as if it all depends on you. Nehemiah didn't argue theology with someone. He embraced the reality of the universe as it is, and he got to work praying because he said, God, if the future is going to change, you need to show up because the future is completely in God's hands, and at the very same time, the future is in your hands. Your decisions, your behaviors, your choices will impact what the future looks like in your life and in our world. So Nehemiah spent 4 months on his knees in prayer, begging God to show up, and he spent 4 months in intense planning so that he could create the preferred future he wanted to see for God's glory and for the city of Jerusalem. And then last week, here's what we learned. The size of your vision determines the size of your team. Nehemiah had a big vision for the future, and he was going to need a big team to rebuild the city walls of Jerusalem. At this time in its history, the city walls of Jerusalem were 15 feet tall, 4 feet wide, and 2 miles long. This would take hundreds of people volunteering their time and energy to make this come to fruition because it was in rubble. And so he needed a big team. And if you missed last week, I think you should go online and just watch what we learned from Nehemiah because he put on a master class on how to recruit and influence people toward a better future. He did 3 simple things. Number 1, he defined a problem. He said, the walls are in ruins and we are in disgrace. That's a problem. Now, here's the funny thing. We already know that's a problem. The people already knew that was a problem. It had been a problem their entire lives, but it's not until someone comes along and says, look at this problem, and they invite you to feel the pain of that problem, are we ready to go to a solution? And the reason for that is we all got problems. Anybody here without any problems? Anyone? No, we have problems. A leader, a visionary leader who's passionate about what could be and should be in the future, they come along because they've lived with the pain of what's broken, and they help all of us see it in your preferred future. Whether you need one person just for accountability or you need dozens of people to do something big, it begins when you come along and say, here's a problem in our world, and you invite them to feel the pain and the weight and the burden of that problem. Then the second thing Nehemiah did is he offered a solution. There is a solution for this problem. Let's all come together. Let's rebuild the city walls of Jerusalem. And then finally, he explained why now is the time to act. The city has been in ruins for 141 years. He says, now is the time to act because God's hand of favor is on this project. King Artaxerxes, he has given the green light. He is bankrolling the operation. He is making this go forward. Now is the time. And when you're recruiting people to help, if you can remember those 3 steps, define the problem, offer a solution, explain why now is the time to get on it, you can use your influence to rally people to create a better future. Now, up till now, this has been fun, right? Like, okay, yeah, we can dream something big. We can rally people to the cause, and Nehemiah's moving forward. But finally, today, we get to the part of the story where there's opposition. In fact, it's pretty fierce opposition. Today, what we're talking about is vision opposition. Vision opposition. With whatever preferred future you are seeking, you need to know right now there is going to be opposition. There are some people that you can already anticipate are going to oppose it, and you're right, they're going to come out, they're going to oppose your preferred vision of the future. There are some people that you expect to rally around you and support you, but they're actually going to make the whole process more difficult. There are people that you need to have on board, and for whatever reason, they're just not going to support you. Some will proactively or passively aggressively work against your preferred future. Today, Nehemiah shows us what to do when your vision, when your preferred future, when what could be and should be faces opposition. Now, we're going to open the scriptures together, but before I do today, I want to invite all of us into a moment of prayer to ask God to be with us and to speak with us as we open His Word. So please join me in prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for your presence among us and for your Word, which lies open before us. I ask that as we read your word today, you would be our teacher, and we would have open ears and humble hearts to hear whatever you have to say to us today. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, let's get to work. Nehemiah chapter 4. When Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and was greatly incensed. He ridiculed the Jews, and in the presence of his associates and the army of Samaria, he said, "What are those feeble Jews doing?" Now, this is my issue. Whenever I read Sanballat in my mind, I hear him speaking in Dr. Evil voice, okay? You can hear it in whatever voice you want. What are these feeble Jews doing? Number 2. Okay, that's just me. You can hear whatever voice. What are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from those heaps of rubble, burned as they are? Tobiah, the Ammonite, who was at his side, said, now this guy, he just sounds like Elmer Fudd to me, but again, you hear him in whatever voice you want. What they are building, even a fox climbing up on it would break down their wall of stones. Now, who are these guys? We've got 2 guys, Sanballat and Tobiah, and they're both just ridiculing Nehemiah and this project. Well, here's what we can gather from history about these 2 characters. Sanballat seems to have been the governor of Samaria. Samaria was a city 30 miles north of Jerusalem, and so he seemed to have been appointed by King Artaxerxes to be the governor there. And he had no interest in the city walls of Jerusalem rebuilding because that would have been a rival to him, to his political influence, to his wealth, to his prominence in the area. That was bad for him politically, so he was opposed to this project going forward. Tobiah, we know a little less about. He's from Ammon, which is the city and area about 30 miles northwest of Jerusalem. So these guys are neighbors to the north of Judah, north of Jerusalem, and they were allies. But Tobiah, he's a guy who wore a reversible jersey. Okay, he said whatever he had to say based on gaining political capital with whoever the audience was. So here we see him allied with Sanballat. Later on in the story, he's actually in Jerusalem, and he somehow has living quarters in the temple, the place where only priests were supposed to be. So he just knows how to work a room. He knows how to work the crowd, and he can spin all the facts all day long however he wants so that he can gain influence with his audience, which, by the way, as an aside, that's a sin. Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything beyond that comes from Satan. Satan's the father of lies. Satan's all about deception and spin and half-truth and slant. That's not from God. To be a Christian is to say, hey, here's the truth. That's all I have to say. You can do whatever you want with the truth, but I'm not going to weigh it, spin it, slant it so that it's more palatable for you or so that you like me more or I can gain political points. But that's who Tobiah is. He's always looking for that angle. And they come together and they start to rally opposition against Nehemiah, and they begin with the oldest trick in the book. It's childish, it's juvenile, and it's very effective. They ridicule him. Okay, when you can bring people together in mockery of a common opponent, you can form allies that way just by making fun of someone else. We see this all the time in our world, don't we? On social media, in our modern political system. We might not have a platform, but if I make fun of theirs, I can rally people to my support. By the way, not only does that lack character, if someone in the public light has a tactic of mocking others and their approach, all it shows you is they don't have a compelling vision of the future for their own. Okay, if you're around someone and they just slander, they talk down, they look at those idiots, what are they doing? They're morons, they're wrong. All they're proving, besides they lack character, is they don't have a compelling vision of the future. Because Sanballat's only picture of the future is keep things the same because that's beneficial for me, but it's not helpful for people and humanity in general. So they start by ridiculing Nehemiah and this whole process. How does Nehemiah respond? Throughout these two chapters, chapters 4 and 5, we see Nehemiah meet each level of opposition at the appropriate level. He never underreacts and he never overreacts. But he teaches us something about responding to threats, ridicule, and slander. And here's what he does. If you're taking notes in your program, respond to insults with prayer. He's going to pray about the threats. That's all he's going to do. When they just mock him, the appropriate response is prayer. Here's the prayer that he prayed. Hear us, our God, for we are despised. Turn their insults back on their own heads. Give them over as plunder in a land of captivity. Do not cover up their guilt or blot out their sins from your sight, for they have thrown insults in the face of the builders. So we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half its height, for the people worked with all their hearts. Let me kind of paraphrase Nehemiah's prayer. Dear God, you told us that if we return to you with all our heart, you would return people to Jerusalem. So we're returning to you with our hearts and getting Jerusalem ready. We're doing what you asked us to do. But these people are insulting us. Now, I've read the Old Testament, God, and I know what you could do. So would you go Chuck Norris on these people? In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, that's his prayer. And then what does he do? He gets back to work. He says, all right, everyone, we prayed. Back to work. What doesn't he do? He doesn't whine, doesn't complain, doesn't play the victim card. Just says, God, you know what's going on. We've got a job to do. We're going to do it. Would you take care of this? We're going to keep doing what you called us to do. See, Nehemiah, all throughout his life, he shows an excellent understanding of how labor should be divided. Last week, we saw how he gave everyone a job on the wall. This week, he says, God also has a job, and so do I. And he divides labor, and he has everyone stay in their lanes. And here's what he understood. God's responsibility is to judge. They're being mean. That's God's responsibility. He's the judge. They're not being fair or nice. That's God's responsibility. He's the judge. That's not me. Your responsibility is to work with all your heart, and that's what Nehemiah rallied the people to do. Keep going at it. However, the opponents are going to elevate the threat level. Here's what happens next. But when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the people of Ashdod heard, pause. So this is literally north, south, east, and west. These are all the people surrounding the city of Jerusalem. So they are the target in the bullseye. When they heard that the repairs to Jerusalem's walls had gone ahead and that the gaps were being closed, they were very angry. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it. But we prayed to our God and posted a guard day and night to meet this threat. So the threat level rises. Now there's active threats. Now people are angry. Now there's people coming together against the city of Jerusalem. What does he do? He assesses the situation and figures out the appropriate level of response. So here's what we learn from him now. Pray, assess, and address. pray, assess, and address. He prays again, and now he posts guards. Okay, it was just threats. I'm going to pray. Now there's active threats. Now I'm going to post guards. He just always meets the level of threat wherever it's at. Well, now the problem is these threats and this alliance that's forming around Jerusalem are starting to influence the fear level of the workers. Here's what we see next. Meanwhile, the people in Judah, this is the Jerusalem area, these are the people doing the work, said, the strength of the laborers is giving out, and there is so much rubble that we cannot rebuild the wall. So in other words, they're starting to waver. They're starting to falter. They're saying there's too much work. We're getting exhausted, and there's just all this rubble. We can't rebuild this. We don't know if this whole thing's going to go. So they're doubting, and they're faltering in their conviction. Also, our enemies said, before they know it or see us, we will be right there among them and will kill them and put an end to the work. So, Sanballat, Tobiah, the Ammonites, the Sumerians, all the people around them, they're saying, okay, we're going to plot an attack on the city of Jerusalem because once that wall's up, they're not getting through that wall. They have to do something now before that wall is rebuilt. So now they're actively plotting an attack on the city of Jerusalem. Then the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times over, wherever you turn, they will attack us. So 10 times over. In other words, this is all anybody's talking about. This is all anyone can say. You guys are going to get attacked. The attack is imminent. The threat is there. So it started with threats, and now it's getting a little more severe. But now we have reached threat level midnight in the city of Jerusalem. It's chaos. What are we going to do? How's Nehemiah going to respond to this? He shows us how. Therefore, I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families with their swords, spears, and bows. After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes. When our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot and that God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to our own work. From that day on, half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor. The officers posted themselves behind all the people of Judah who were building the wall. Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. And each of the builders wore his sword at his side as he worked. But the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me. Then I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, the work is extensive and spread out, and we are widely separated from each other along the wall. Wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there. Our God will fight for us. So we continued the work with half the men holding spears from the first light of dawn till the stars came out. At that time, I also said to the people, have every man and his helper stay inside Jerusalem at night so they can serve us as guards by night and workers by day. Neither I nor my brothers nor my men nor the guards with me took off our clothes. Each had his weapon even when he went for water. So the threat level increases, then we're going to have to change our plans. New plans, everyone. Half of you, you're on guard. Everyone, weapon at your side at all times. In fact, we're sleeping in our armor now. We're going to work in our armor, trowel in one hand, sword in the other. This is how the project's going to go. Nehemiah, won't that slow things down? Yes. Any other questions? All right, good. Let's keep going at it, working with all our hearts on this project because we are doing exactly what God has called us to do. The plans have to change now, but we're going to keep pursuing what could be and what should be, and that's what we are going to do. So here's what we learn from Nehemiah here. Plans change, vision remains the same. Plans change, vision remains the same. This is so important. I want you guys to say this out loud with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Plans change, vision remains the same. Everyone at home, write that in the chat. Plans change, vision remains the same. This principle has guided us over the history of Hope Church like you would not believe. It even started with the reason why I landed here at Hope Church. I was living my life with a great vision for my future in Boise, Idaho. Life's great in Idaho. When this church calls me out of the blue and tells me about this vision they had. And Kathy and I knew, looks like our plans are going to change because this is the vision we have in our hearts of what the church could be and should be. A place where people, no matter their background, no matter where they stand with God, no matter what their church history is or isn't, no matter how badly they've sinned or fallen, can come and be part of a church and know that there is a Father in heaven who loves them and a Savior named Jesus who forgives them. And our plans changed, but this vision we were on, that's what we had to be part of. And we got here and we were meeting at the old Summit Town Hall, half a mile up the road. The building that looks like it should be condemned. That's where we got started. And then we went to 2 services. And then what? People said, well, when are you guys going to build your building? Wrong question. A building is a plan, but we have a vision, and our vision is to create this kind of church that attracts and engages people who do not go to church. That's what we're pursuing here, and that means the time to build a building was not then. We would have built the biggest building we could build, and we would have outgrown it before we moved in, so we got into a middle school cafeteria. What says passion like middle school cafeteria? But that was the next step, and then a middle school gymnasium, then 2 services in a middle school gymnasium, and then online only during COVID, and then build a building. Do you know why? Because we're pursuing a vision. And along the way, as you pursue a vision, your plans are going to change. That doesn't mean you have the wrong plan or wrong vision, and it doesn't mean God is not with you or for you. It means either the environment changed and you need a new plan, or your plan was just awful, but the vision was the right one. Change your plans. But if there's a vision in your heart about what could be and should be and must be in the future that glorifies God and serves people, do not let go of that vision. The work's going to slow down, yep, because we have a new plan now. But the vision remains the same. So they keep working with weapons, with tools, day and night. Now, this level of opposition we've seen so far didn't surprise Nehemiah. He knew this would come. He knew area governors, warlords, people like that, they would not like to see the city walls of Jerusalem coming back up, and that's why nothing fazed him in chapter 4. He just pivots, off he goes, just keeps moving forward, changing the plans. But what happened in chapter 5 was an entirely different level of opposition, and this is the one that nearly overthrew the entire project. Here's chapter 5. Now, the men and their wives raised a great outcry against their fellow Jews. Some were saying, "We and our sons and daughters are numerous. In order for us to eat and stay alive, we must get grain. We're spending all of our time rebuilding this wall. We need grain." Others are saying, "We are mortgaging our fields, our vineyards, and our homes to get grain during the famine." Haven't learned this yet. There's a famine going on while the reconstruction project is happening. And the people are mortgaging their homes. They're mortgaging their fields just to stay alive so they can volunteer on the city wall. Still others were saying, "We have had to borrow money to pay the king's tax on our fields and vineyards. Although we are of the same flesh and blood as our fellow Jews, and though our children are as good as theirs, yet we have to subject our sons and daughters to slavery. Some of our daughters have already been enslaved, but we are powerless because our fields and our vineyards belong to others." So if you get into debt today, there's always options like declaring bankruptcy and things like that. In those days, there were no bankruptcy laws. You couldn't transfer balance from one credit card to another. You had to pay off your debts, and if you couldn't, then your children were sold as indentured servants, and they had to work off your debt to someone else. And if they could work it off, then you could get your kids back. Or if you didn't have kids, you were sold as a slave. And the people are saying, "Listen, we've got a lot of kids. I've got a lot of mouths to feed, and we don't have any grain. How are we going to do that?" Others are saying, we're in debt up to our eyeballs. We need help. And still others said, "We already sold our kids." And do you know who we sold them to? Our fellow countrymen. See, we were freed to come back to our own country, but now we're just being enslaved by our fellow citizens of the city of Jerusalem. The rich were exploiting the poor. Now, we look at this, and on the surface, it seems like an economic problem. It seems like a famine problem. But it's not. People can come together in seasons of horrible adversity and challenging situations, and if they stick together and rally together around a common cause, you can get through. We don't have an economic problem here. Nehemiah has a unity problem. The people are not unified as one people, as fellow countrymen, as citizens among God's people, and brothers and sisters under the same Father in heaven. See, unity among a people group is a superpower. Disunity and division, that's cancer. And Nehemiah knows he's got a problem to solve. If he doesn't get these people unified, this is going nowhere. Outside opposition and threats, hey, we can deal with that. But if internally we're divided, this is going nowhere. Now, do you know who understands this principle perhaps better than anyone? The Kremlin. During the Cold War, the KGB launched a strategy against the United States. And what they called it was desinformatsiya, which is a Russian word for a disinformation campaign. And the idea was, if we can flood the Western world, entertainment, media, with lies, half-truths, conspiracy theory, misinformation, disinformation, we can keep the West so distracted, chasing their own tails, arguing with each other, that they won't be able to unify against us or pay attention to what Russia's interests are in the East. And this did not abate after the Cold War. In fact, once the internet came out and social media came out, it actually exploded and is their most common tactic still used today against the Western world and the United States. Here's one recent example. In 2016, there was a street fight that broke out in Houston, Texas. The reason why is because there was a rally planned for that day. It was planned by United Muslims for America, a Muslims' right and advocacy group that planned a rally on the streets of Houston. Well, that same day, at the very same time, there was another rally that was scheduled. This rally was scheduled by a group called Stop Islamification of Texas. And they happened to have, and neither side knew, a rally on the same day, same place, same time, and predictably, violence broke out. Well, later, the FBI looked into this to try and figure out what happened, and guess what they discovered? The group, United Muslims for America, was not started by a Muslim. It was started in St. Petersburg by Russian operatives. They started a Facebook group, gathered thousands of followers, and then, after they did that, they scheduled a rally in Houston. And the other group, Stop Islamification from Texas, was not started by anyone who was right-wing or from Texas. It was also started in St. Petersburg with a Facebook group. And they attracted tens of thousands of followers on their group, and they scheduled the rally for the same place, same time. And when the chaos broke out, the people who were the masterminds behind it were sitting comfortably in St. Petersburg watching the whole thing happen at an expense of only $200 of Facebook ads. Desinformatsiya. Now, as an aside, as your pastor, please practice discernment. Please. Online. You never know where that fact came from. But that's an aside. If you even give the New Testament a cursory reading and see what it's about, one of the things that leaps off the pages is that the church of Jesus is to be a place where people are unified. Not unified around common interest or common opinions or common preferences or common hobbies, but something more fundamental and more powerful than that. Unified around the fact that we have one Father in heaven. Unified around the fact that we have one Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Unified around the fact that Jesus gave his church one mission that we pursue, and we give our lives to pursuing that mission of making more disciples, introducing more people to Jesus. One of the reasons why our church has been blessed over the years is because we have been a church of remarkable unity. Now, a recent example I can think of this from outside the church was from the NBA Finals this year. What was going on in the Deer District? Tens of thousands of people, 80-some thousand people cheering on the Bucks together, high-fiving, hugging, linked arm in arm at every free throw, all these strangers coming together. Now, here's my question. Do you think they all voted the same in the last election? Do you think they all had the same views of the economy? Do you think they were all in the same economic class? Were they all of the same race? No, but there was something in that moment that was more fundamentally important to them and unified a diverse group of people, and it was Bucks and Six. That's what unified them. Thought there'd be more cheering than that in that moment. Listen, in the Church of Jesus, we have something that fundamentally unifies us, and it's beautiful. It's that we are brother and sister in Christ. It's that we have the same common destination, linked arm in arm around the throne of heaven, celebrating, cheering, and rejoicing in the presence of God for eternity. Nehemiah realizes he has a unity problem, and he can only think of one thing that will bring this people together. When I heard their outcry and these charges, I was very angry. Never angry last chapter, was he? Sanballat, whatever. I expect him to do that. Tobiah, yeah, I expect him to do that. All these people around us, well, yeah, I expect him to do that. Our own people taking advantage of each other? Now he's angry. I pondered them in my mind, so wise. Let me think about this before I act. He's angry, but I'm going to think about it. Don't send that email till you take 24 hours. Ponder them in my mind, and then accused the nobles and officials. I told them, you are charging your own people interest. So I called together a large meeting to deal with them and said, as far as possible, we have brought back our fellow Jews who were sold to the Gentiles. Now you are selling your own people only for them to be sold back to us? They kept quiet because they could find nothing to say. So I continued, what you are doing is not right. Shouldn't you walk in the fear of our God to avoid the reproach of our Gentile enemies? I and my brothers and my men are also lending the people money and grain. But let us stop charging interest. Give back to them immediately their fields, vineyards, olive groves, and houses, and also the interest you are charging them. 1% of the money, grain, and new wine and olive oil. We will give it back, they said. Where did Nehemiah go to unify these people? Shouldn't you walk in the fear of our God? On Wednesday afternoons, I meet with all the pastors on staff, and we're looking at the message coming up about 2 or 3 weeks out. We just kind of read through the text together and, talk about it, and just they help me out so much. And when we read this verse, it was Zach, actually, who was up on stage a little while ago, who said, if you stop walking in the fear of God, the first thing to fall is your neighbor. See, your neighbor was made in God's image, and your neighbor is loved by God. And if you stop walking your life in fear of God, you're going to have no respect or love for your neighbor who is made in his image. Well, what does that mean, fear of God? Honestly, this is like a 6-week series all by itself. This topic is. I'm going to give you the really condensed understanding. I grew up in church, and I was told that to fear God means to honor him or respect him or revere him. And I would think to myself, then why doesn't the Bible just say, walk in the reverence of God? Why does it say walk in the fear of God? In fact, anytime in the Bible somebody meets an angel, to say nothing of God, they're pretty afraid, okay? They're pretty much terrified. One example I think of that always strikes me is John, the apostle of Jesus. John spent 3 years with Jesus, and He was one of the inner three. There was Peter, James, and John. So, like, of all the 12 disciples, he was in the inner three. And not only that, John had a nickname. He was called the disciple Jesus loved. You're like, doesn't Jesus love everybody? Yeah, but he was friends with John. He liked being with John. He loved him. Well, after Jesus ascended into heaven, as the disciples, as the apostles went and were witnesses of what they had seen and heard, now one by one, they were martyred, they were killed, they were executed, many times in violent ways, because they wouldn't stop talking about what they had seen and heard. We saw Jesus crucified on a cross, risen on the third day. That's what we saw, until only John was left. He was an old man, he was a prisoner, very lonely, and Jesus, at the end of his life, came to him because I said, I've got one final message I want you to write down so you can give it to the churches scattered throughout the Roman Empire. But when Jesus came to him, he didn't come to him like John was familiar with him, the humble carpenter from Nazareth who has perfect pearly white teeth and flowing dark locks and all of that, the pictures that I would see of Jesus in Sunday school. He came fully glorified and exalted as the powerful, fierce, holy Son of God. John said his eyes were like burning fire. His voice, when he spoke, it was like a river, whitewater rapids coming out of his mouth with just his words. And when John saw Jesus, his friend, holy, glorified, in full-on God mode, here's what happened. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. Now, if this is John's reaction, John, who wrote John, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, Revelation, 5 books of the Bible, 3 years with Jesus, apparently his favorite disciple, if this is how John reacted, what chance do you have when your eyes see Jesus for the first time? When you stand before him and your life is judged. John fell at his feet as if he were dead. It's all he can do. Can't even get any words out of his mouth. He just collapses. Because suddenly he sees his friend for everything he is, the holy, fierce judge of all mankind. But look at what Jesus did. Then he placed his right hand on me and said, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Why? I am the first and the last. I was there at the beginning, and I am the one who will be at the end. I am the living one. I was dead, and now look, I am alive forever and ever. I was crucified. I did die. I did bear your sin, but I paid the penalty, so I rose victorious over death. And he had told John earlier, because I live, you also will live. John, yes, I am judge. Yes, I am fierce, but I have forgiven you. So do not be afraid. It's only when we fear God rightly as the judge of all mankind, as the Holy One, that we can enter into his presence and see that he is also the God of gracious love and compassion and forgiveness. And when we enter into that kind of relationship with God, suddenly the view of the world changes. And we see that our purpose in life is to glorify God, and it is to love and serve our neighbor with all our hearts. Because that's what Jesus did, and he did it for us. So let's bring all of this together, all these ideas we've seen in 2 chapters of Nehemiah today, and apply them to what we've been talking about this whole series, in your future, what could be and what should be. So here's where we're going to land. There's no worksheet today. Every other part of the series, we sent you home with a worksheet to process stuff. This is your worksheet. It's in your notes. It's just 4 questions. As you think about a godly future, number 1, does your preferred future reflect a fear of God? When you look at what could be and should be, is it nothing more than, well, I want to lose 10 pounds so I look better in my swimsuit next summer? Which is a fine goal, but does your preferred vision of the future reflect what could be and should be with the fear of God? that you live for Him. Second, what threats do you need to address? You're going to face threats as you move forward towards a God-fearing vision of what could be and what should be. Third, what prayers do you need to pray? Everything Nehemiah does, he is bathing it in prayer as he goes and as he responds. And then finally, what action do you need to take? What prayers do you need to pray? What action do you need to take? Rather than being passive, Nehemiah always put the next foot forward and kept doing the next right thing. And he did it with the fear of God. But we're going to really see how that comes out next Sunday. Let's close in prayer. Father in heaven, thank you again for the inspirational life of Nehemiah. But we don't just want to be inspired today. We want to fully see and worship and fear you as you really are. And you are the one who judges all mankind. And when we think of this, we are aware of how fallen and sinful and broken and selfish we can be. Yet, Jesus, in your great love, you redeemed us. And it is only through you that we can be invited not to be afraid, but to look forward to you and your great love for us. So as we look at our world and we imagine what could be and should be, let our motivation be to love and fear and trust you and you alone so that we can make this world and this future a better place. We ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Let's stand and sing together. Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. Absolutely. Well, it's been incredible getting to worship with you all today. We'll see you right back here next week to continue this series. Have a great week.